So hello everyone. Today we are going to look after the sentiment analysis. So why sentiment analysis is very important to us? So basically, we have two kind of data which we primarily deal with in business environment. So one is the structured data, and the another one is the unstructured data. So structured data is nothing but all about when the data follows a certain kind of relationship with each other. So suppose the fields are there and the fields are arranged in a certain way that they has some sort of relationship with each other. Now if I say any numerical data, any survey data which is there, which is being collected by the scale or score, so this is nothing but the structured data. So another kind of data which is there, which is I will say the most of the data are unstructured. So there we try to analyze the textual data, or maybe the data which does not follows any kind of pattern. So unstructured data analytics is a very important part, because the way we are collecting data through sensors and all over the sources, mostly the data are unstructured in their own way. So to gain the business insights or get some sort of information, we need to deep dive into the unstructured data. So if we go to this sentiment analysis, so what is sentiment analysis? So if we see that sentiment analysis is nothing but all about understanding the tone underlying in the customer's phrases or the customer's voice. So we can say if a customer is saying something or submitting certain amount of like a certain kind of feedback or something like this, so they are trying to communicate with the brand. So all these textual communications, they follow a certain kind of tone, and that is important for us to understand that what kind of perception customers have in their mind, or what is the customer experience throughout the journey. So we can segregate the sentiment into primarily three different tones. So one is the positive and the negative, and the last one is the neutral. Now we also have different kind of, like, we can also think of something like mixed sentiment or something like that, but these three are the primarily accepted sentiment. So positive sentiment, negative sentiment, we will come to the example later. So first let's try to understand that what are the key components of the sentiments. So you will say, so if you're trying to do certain sentiment analysis or something like that, the first thing you have to keep in mind that there are certain kind of words. If people are typing something, they are nothing but typing certain arrangements of words. Now if you use a dictionary which follows like what are the words that comes under this kind of sentiment, what are the words this comes under the negative sentiment, what are the words that can comes under the neutral sentiments. So this way you can just create a sentiment word dictionary to understand that how you are going to classify the sentiments and all. Now that's it, that is kind of a traditional and I will say rule based approach. And the another approach which are there that are quite dynamic, that is machine learning approach. So machine learning, it's nothing but about train the model to classify the underlying tone behind the sentiment. So machine can easily identify that the tone is like positive, the tone is negative, or the tone is neutral. The another advanced way we can follow, that is I will say the hybrid approach, where we can also think about not just mixing up the ML and the rule based approach, but also we can just mix up the NLP or the natural language processing into the sentiment model to get a better idea and understand the context in a very better way. So there are like applications, a wide range of applications are there. So customers are every time sharing a certain amount of feedback about the brand in social media like LinkedIn and also Facebook, WhatsApp, wherever they are trying to share the feedback. Now Facebook and LinkedIn are quite visible because the feedbacks are quite like quite public. And I would say also you can think about the Twitter, where people are just uh, writing a lot of things about the brands and their experience with the brand. So there are survey results, there are reviews in Google and everywhere, so where people are talking about different aspects of the brands. So how they feel the brand, what are the good things that happen to them, what are the bad things that happen to them, everything people try to write throughout the web. Now customer feedback is there, lying in the web. So there is in social media, website review, everywhere there is customer feedback. Now if you want to analyze the customer feedback, so you need to scrap the certain amount of data, and if you crack the code in a correct way, then you can get an idea like what are the pain points that the customers are facing, what are the key strength of the brand, are you ahead or matching up to the market expectations, or you are lagging behind it. So all this kind of analysis can come through customer feedback analysis. Now the another is brand reputations and monitoring. So you can also understand that what is the customer's perception about the brand, what the how the customer is feeling belonging to the brand, or how the experience was there so far. So brand reputation, so everything you can monitor through the textual or emotional data which the customers is sharing throughout the web. You can also do a certain kind of competitor analysis or market research through the unstructured data. So suppose there is some certain way the customer is not happy with your product or service, but when the customer is writing the feedback, the customer is trying to mention another competitor name that may be certain. So if I say that Zomato's feedback is suppose bad, and people are, so someone is writing that I am not happy with Zomato, so maybe they can mention out that I'd never faced that issue with Swiggy. So this is something you can get a bit more of research about the market and the competitive environment surrounded to you. And also you can see like financial sentiment predictions. So this thing also you can do like stock market, and also what are the customers or the, I will say, the user sentiment that is associated with the stock market or the stock performance, what are their emotions associated with the economy. So what do they feel about the government policies and all. So I think it's an overall unstructured way of collecting the data and making it something into meaningful insights, and it will save the business decisions in a very smooth way. So now we are looking after the sentiment analysis, like why the sentiment analysis is super important for business. So the first thing you can do, you can do the customer feedback analysis. You can understand that what the customers are saying, what the people are just shooting around over the social media from means experience with your brand. And also brand reputation management, which I already explained, market research and competitive analysis, and some sort of like actionable insights like enhancing customer experience, financial sentiment predictions, and the crisis detections and prevention. So early sign of churn and all these like fraud, safety concerns, you can predict with the unstructured data. So there are certain parameters. If you see that the tone is mostly negative, or the customers are not happy with your product, so there is an alert which is triggered that the customer might get churned. If the customer is mentioning certain kind of nouns, or the suppose I say competitor name or something like that, then there is high chance that the customer can easily get churned. So you can say that this is nothing but the subscription or the revenue loss. So you can prevent certain amount of revenue loss with the help of sentiment analysis, by understanding the crisis and understanding the customer pain points, or what are the customers experience, or how you can make the experience better. So this is something which you can do with the sentiment analysis, and I think this is the reason that sentiment analysis is so important for any business, to understand the customer's needs and a customer experience. Now we were looking into that the sentiment analysis, so we are looking into certain amount of examples and what type of solutions we can choose to solve the or implement this sentiment analysis into our organization. So the major challenges which is there in the underlying text, that is the context understanding. So sometimes we are humans, so we sometimes provide too much context. When we are writing, maybe we can use some certain amount of acronyms. So maybe we can input certain amount of heavily emotional words or tones are there. So that is something which is we will say context understanding, or maybe people are cross referencing some other conversation that happened earlier. So these are nothing but about the context understanding. So the better example, if I say like there is a webinar, so the name of the webinar is success webinar. So basically sometimes machine got puzzled by understanding, and they can keep the success word as a positive, but actually it is not, because that is nothing but a noun, that is the name of the webinar. So I think this way the context plays a very key role in the underlying text, and also I will say domain specific knowledge is something which is important to understand the acronyms, or understand that how the customer should feel about their products, and what solutions the customers are having with their products. So I think domain specific knowledge is important. So if we are looking for different domains, they are expected to hear different aspects from the customers, how the customers is coming up with the different problems, and what are the customers pain points are there. Now the multilingual processing is also important. So if there is certain feedback which is in Japanese or Chinese, or maybe there are, if the feedback is in various kind of languages, so to understand and process the feedback we need NLP, or very high level of processing engine, so to understand the underlying language and all. So everywhere, whenever you are trying to design certain solutions, keep in mind like two things are super important to you before jumping into the sentiment analysis. The one is the data collections, and the another one is the data quality. Now why I am saying this, so the kind of data, like how the data is going to collect, that is something which is very important, because if the data is not going to collect in a proper way, then the data will collect random noise rather than important feedbacks. So there are a lot of way, like people use, like suppose call data, or maybe some casual conversation data like hi hello. These are nothing but the random noises. So we need to be sometimes very clear, like what type of feedback we are going to collect from the customers, and how the feedback should look like when the feedback flows to us as a raw data. Now the another important thing is to maintain the data quality. So I will say, like if the sentiment is coming from the customer, we need to be very clear by in terms of the mapping of the sentiment with the specific accounts or the customer. So if there are certain feedback that is being coming from the like feedback engine or feedback server, but we are not able to map that feedback with a specific user or something like that, that cannot lead us great insights. Because when we know the customer better, we can understand their issue in a better way, and we can keep solving the issue in a better way, or we can say better in a better approach. So I will say, for before jumping into the sentiment analysis, two things are super important. The one is the data collections, and that another thing is the data quality. Please make sure that these two things are up to mark, and if it is not, then you need to make some sort of additional effort to get these things done. Now let's look after certain examples of how the sentiment phrases look like. So you can see like there are positive, negative and neutral sentiments are there. So you can see like I love this product, that's amazing, and great customer service. So when people are appreciating the effort or the brand, I think that is something which comes under the positive sentiment. And the negative sentiment is when the people does not feel that they have a the people feel like they don't have a great experience with the brand, so then they just keep shooting some negative experience, and all that comes under the negative sentiment. Now the positive sentiment is very important to understand the brand strength, or I will say the product strength in the market. And the negative sentiment is all about the opportunity or the threat which the brand can improve. and there are neutral sentiments where there is nothing like positive or nothing, the tone is not mostly negative. So it is something which is in between. So we can say like these are the feedbacks which are the safe feedback, that they are not saying anything positive but they are not also saying anything negative. So that is something which is also a bit of tricky, because you are not getting the exact information, like what the customers are feeling about your brand. So this is very tricky one. The next is the mixed sentiment, when the customers feel like certain positive aspects and the also customer feels certain negative things. So overall we can say that's a mix way. So here also we can understand that what the customers feel good, and where are the areas that we can make certain improvements over the time period. Now approach to sentiment analysis, this is one of the most important thing, that how you are going to implement the sentiment analysis. So if we say like there are two key ways that we can design the solution of the sentiment analysis. One is the traditional approach and the another is the NLP based deep learning approach, or I will say the GPT or some LLM approach. That is very super important. Now in the traditional ML, there are certain kind of manual efforts are there, that you need to put certain type of parameters, tuning, you need to define certain keywords, you need to train the model from the scratch. So this is how it goes, but there are certain pros and cons associated with the model. So the pros is like you will have a good control over the model, you have the end-to-end control of the parameters and what's going on behind the model and how the model is working. But the cons are that the model is not scalable, or they lack of, sometimes they just struggle with the context or complex linguistic structures. That is something which is very important in today's world. So traditional ML, I will say, if your data is kind of clean and your data quality is super good, then traditional ML can be a good fit. But if you are looking for like large data set where there is a high variety, or there are like complex patterns are there, then I think traditional machine learning approach can't work. Then we need to move to the another approach, which is the NLP approach. So NLP is nothing but harnessing the power of LLM to understand the customer tones behind the phrases. So we can use like different type of transformers, BERT, GPT, or whatever is available to us. We can just use the Azure or AWS, and we can just pull the API and just keep using this. But there also comes a certain amount of pros and cons. So I think the biggest pros of this LLM approach is to understand the context and understand the high varieties of like comments in a better way. So this is something which is super important in today's business. But the cons is like that sometimes it required like large data set, or I will say computation power. So suppose the LLM approach will not too good or maybe fruitful for small data set, because that is too expensive and sometimes that demands high computation power. And the another thing is the model is completely black box. So if you are trying to utilize some LLM model, you are just calling an API configuring certain parameters, but the model backend is mostly black box to you, because you don't have much exposure to the model. So these are something which is related to the NLP based deep learning. So I think in today's video we run through that what is the sentiment analysis, how we are going to look after the solution, so what are the different options we have, and how we are why it is important, how we are going to deal with it. This is something which is the basic understanding. So keep shooting in comment like what are your thoughts on this. If you have any better approach or any better way in your mind, then don't hesitate, feel free to just paste it in the comment. And in the next part we will just try to see like how we can design and workflow of an architecture based upon Azure to just implement or deploy this sentiment analysis model, NLP based sentiment analysis model. So that's all for today. So let's keep in mind that sentiment analysis is super important, and we need to get certain amount of domain expertise, context understanding to get the insights. So that's all for today. See you in the next video.